Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Wednesday. It is hump day, and we have some rather serious subject matter today, so I am going to put out the warning first and foremost. For sensitivity, trigger alerts, everything, we will be talking about suicide prevention today. So, yeah, sorry, my hair is looks uneven, so sorry. We're going to be talking about that today, and it's more a suicide versus suicidal thing that we're going to start with, but then I have some thoughts I want to share. Now, just a reminder, I am not a licensed therapist. I am not a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. I am someone who's been through this and is just sharing my experiences and my perspective, however you want to take that. So, but please do listen, because I'm going to be very, very open on this one. And I just want everyone to know, so nobody freaks out, I am not in that place. I'm still kind of all over the place, but I do have a workaround to not go that dark anymore. And I will share that as well. So first and foremost, I just want to share something that happened to me yesterday. I shared it with Sammy because Sammy was on the live yesterday, and I got a headache and I just kind of put down my phone for the rest of the day. But yesterday I had a touch of a headache all day, and it was just so freaking annoying because it's like that pain that's just sitting there, and I knew it had to do with the weather because I get sinus migraines from the weather, but it didn't quite get there. But it was enough to make me discombobulated. So anyways, I went to the store for my dad, and they have these little slots, right? They have these slots for your drinks, and they have these slots for your cell phones or whatever. And so I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. So I've used them before once or twice, but normally I don't, because I can be very, just, especially when I'm discombobulated, it's just not a good idea. So anyways, I left my phone in the cart. And I went back to the car because I just wanted to get home because my head was starting to really hurt. And I got to the light, and my phone wasn't connecting to the car, and I'm like, what is happening? And so it says, make sure phone is connected. So I went to grab my phone. I'm like, oh my God, I left it in the cart. So I immediately turn around, I go back, I park like a maniac right in the middle, not in the middle of the street, but on the side with my hazards on, run through to the manager's desk. Did anybody return a phone? No. So I thought, okay, well, I can't just leave the car there and go wandering around the store. So I thought, all right, I'm going to park the car, I'm going to run back in, and I'm going to look, to see if anyone has, like anyone that I saw going in had the cart. But I didn't really see anyone. So I thought, if I didn't notice it in there to take it out, maybe they didn't notice it and it might still be in there. So anyways, I kind of did an entire sweep around the store. Mind you, I'm still not feeling well. I get back to the manager's desk, and there's this woman standing there. And the manager looks at me and says, "She found your phone." It's like, thank you, because I'm sitting here like, how do I explain that I've lost my phone? I'm going through all these things, like I have to tell people. And, there's still some very, there's things with my mom and Sissy Joe on there that I really don't want to lose. I don't use the cloud because I don't, okay, for someone who likes technology, I don't believe in the cloud, okay? It's just not safe enough to me. So I keep everything on my phone. But I was just standing there, and she's like, oh yeah, she's all, well, I told my husband I got to go return this, and I wanted to leave my number to make sure that you called me, because I just wanted to share how happy I was that I could do this for you. And then she goes on, without even me asking, my name is Susan. I'm a Catholic. I go to St. Peter's Church down the way, and my mom actually did some of her Eucharistic ministry training at some of these churches. She had to go to different churches to see how different people practiced in different Catholic churches. And I believe St. Peter's is either Russian Orthodox or Greek Orthodox. I can't remember, but which means very traditional. But I could tell because she had her cross on and everything. And then, without even thinking, I was just so relieved after praying and gratituding my little head off. I was just like, can I please give you a hug? And she's all, absolutely. So we hugged, the manager left, we thanked him, and I thanked her. She said, I don't want anything, just pay it forward by helping, the less fortunate. She's all, I help the people, that I send things to Mexico. I help the homeless in downtown, and I was just like, what, that's a really good idea. That's a good reminder to be of service to people, not just think about it. So I thought that's a great idea, especially with Comic-Con coming up. I'll be in and around downtown, so be a good time to just drop stuff off, right? So anyway, although most of my stuff is at home, but anyways, that being said, I got home and I was just like thanking everybody across the board, the spiritual board and the universe. Thank you. And then then it dawned on me. I got my hug. I got the hug that I've needed so badly for so many days now. And I was just like, you know what? Thank you, Mom. I knew that was my mom. That had my mom written all over it. The fact that the woman was Catholic, the fact that she picked my cart, because I pushed my cart way in. It was not one of those that was sticking out where most people go to the one that's closest. This was not. And then as I was thinking that, a butterfly flew past me, and then I saw the numbers 1, 2, 3 on the car behind me, and I knew, okay, this has got my mom's hand written all over it. So thank you, Mother. And thank you everybody across the board, universe, God, everyone at my spiritual table. So, but yeah, I was so, I'm trying not to tap my mic, so grateful to get my hug yesterday. So now that we've had a feel-good story, let's dive into the sad stuff. Good morning, Sammy. Oh, good morning, older sibling. I see a third person on, but I apologize. I can't see who it is, but I can see older siblings on. I can see Sammy's on. And an older sibling, if you're wondering why I didn't tell you this last night, I was going to, but then my head got worse. So I just ended up falling asleep and forgetting. So anyways, my friend Jody, shared this. It's called Suicide versus Suicidal. So again, remember, this is a trigger warning. This is just my perspective, but I am going to share this. I am going to go over it, and I'm going to go over some texts, or not some texts, some facts and stuff. Good morning, cousin. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know where your appointment is or what it is, but have a good appointment. So, so anyways, let's go. Let's just start this. So suicide versus suicidal. So I'm going to read the suicide versus the suicidal step by step, each one versus the other. Okay. So, suicide, considered a tragedy. Suicidal, considered attention seeking. Suicide, everyone is present. Suicidal, everyone tries to avoid them. Suicide, everyone feels bad. Suicidal, everyone feels bad. Everyone wishes they saw the signs. Suicidal, everyone feels irritated. Everyone pretends the problem isn't there and dismisses them. And the last one, suicide, everyone wishes they hadn't done it. Suicidal, no one believes they'll ever do it. I know there are some cases where that I've been in where people have weaponized their mental health, and when you know someone well enough, you know when they're weaponizing it. And when I say weaponizing it, I mean they're doing it because they want someone to feel sorry for them. They're not seeking help. They just want someone to feel sorry for them. And I'm not talking about anybody on my social media. Okay, this is someone I knew directly, not my friend who passed away, but this was someone I knew directly who was going through a very, very rough time, who really was outside their mind at this point in their life. And I want to say definitely old enough to know better, because they were in therapy, but they weren't honest in their therapy. And I know this firsthand from the people that were involved in this. So not much connection with that person anymore, which is kind of sad because, this is somebody I do care about, and it is a relative. But I can't, there was a bit of a narcissistic personality to that. And a lot of, this is all happening to me. This hasn't happened to anybody else. And so that right there shows me that even though they'd been through therapy, they weren't utilizing it to its best advantage. So, it was more just, it felt more like they had to do it than they wanted to. And if you're going to go through therapy, you have to want to do it, because you're going to have to want to do the work. And the work is hard. The work is scary. Okay, and the work can bring up a lot of feelings that you just don't want to deal with because you've been through that, right? You've been there, done that, don't want to feel it, don't want to do it anymore. But you have to, because the only way out is through. Okay, the only way out is through. So, I will say I have been suicidal in my life. 3 times that I can count. I'm sure the thought has rolled through my mind more than 3 times, but 3 times were actual, well, I should say 2 times were actual attempts. The third one was really more of a cry for help. And honestly, I think each one was a cry for help, or I was just so overwhelmed. But definitely the third one was probably me saying, please, I need to really think this through. I need somebody to help me. Now, let's take these apart, okay, one by one. Suicide is, considered a tragedy versus considered attention seeking. The attention seeking part bothers me because there's a lot of people out there who don't have support systems. I'm very lucky to have a support system. I admit I don't utilize it as much as I should. I've been struggling the last couple of weeks mentally, and I've been really doing my best to kind of just hold my shit together. And, but I just haven't wanted to reach out to anybody because I've just needed the space and the time, right? So, there's little signs like baby sibling knew something wasn't right yesterday because instead of typing out, like I send her a good morning message every day because we don't talk. I usually talk to older sibling on a daily basis when I'm not home, or my dad. So, it's just like, good morning, love you, have a great day. But I just kind of abbreviated love you. And she knew, just like I know when she's busy because of the way she types things out. So when you know someone's patterns, you know that it's kind of a sign, right? And it may not even be a conscious sign. It just may be a sign that, something's not right because this isn't normal. It could be the same text message every day and then all of a sudden one thing changes and you're like, So when I say this, I have known people who have been accused of attention seeking on social media, but having known some of these people for a few years now and knowing their background, enough of their background and their situation, even when you have a support group or even when you have people that reach out to you that really want to be there for you, no matter how hard they're shoving and trying to push you away, it's because there's a lack of trust. And it's probably a lifelong lack of trust. When you go through trauma, any kind of trauma, wherever brought you to the starting line of your healing journey through trauma, whatever brought you there, there's probably something that really challenged or broke your trust. So trusting other people is not easy, but also we tend to navigate towards people who aren't trustworthy because what we can't fix in ourselves, we try to fix in other people. Now, that's not everybody. Some people handle their trauma really well. Older sibling has handled her trauma really well, and she has given me permission years ago to share these things, but I'm not going to go into detail about that, okay? But I will say this. I hope it's okay, older sibling, because I have shared this before and you have given me permission, but have you, is it okay if I share your story about, this particular subject? So I'm asking her, and I hope she's listening because I see that she's got to still be on. So, a thumbs up, a heart, a yes, a no, maybe a yes or whatever. I'm not sure if you guys are commenting or not because a lot of comments don't seem to be coming through here. But, okay, she says, of course. Older sibling, I believe it was twice. Was it twice, older sibling? Actually seriously attempted to take her own life. Or as the kids say nowadays, or as people say nowadays, because I think they think it's less traumatic than committed, because apparently committed is not the right way to say committed suicide. Attempted suicide, tried to unalive themselves. That's what, and my friend won't even touch the S word. Oh my gosh, 3 times. 3 times sibling tried to unalive herself, take her own life. First and foremost, she told me that the first time, or maybe each time that she woke up, there's not a sense of relief in some cases. I read a story where this one gentleman said, I tried to take my own life. I woke up, I was relieved. And I realized, okay, I've been given a second chance. But not everybody goes in that direction. Some people wake up and go, God, there's just one more thing I'm not good at. And older sibling was very disappointed, and like I said, I am so, so grateful. There may be tears in this, because not sad, well, maybe sad tears, I don't know. But not trying for them, okay? Just, I can feel them right now. Because I'm very overwhelmed emotionally, and I'm very, very glad that sibling is still here. Because I don't know where I'd be if she wasn't here. I met her 26 years ago. We became really close friends 25 years ago, and about 22 years ago, she really became like an older sister to me. Kind of like a surrogate mom, but really an older sister to me. And she was the one that knew I needed help. Even when I couldn't ask for it, even when I didn't want it, she didn't force it on me. She made mild suggestions, which weren't always met with the kindest words or attitudes. I could be very combative about it, because I had already had it ingrained in my head years before that we don't talk about these things. We need to be stronger. Don't be like my uncle who took his own life. Don't be like this. Only weak people do this. Weak people don't do this, guys. It's hard to explain suicide to people. I don't know what runs through everybody's heads, but from all the things I've read about people, from all the people I've known who have had their own attempts, and from my own situation of having come this close, I'm what you call a near attempt. So I had 3 memorable types of near attempt. Well, 2 memorable types of near attempts, and 1 desperate cry for help that I can honestly, openly remember. Like I said, it may have rolled through my mind other times. I've shared those before. First time when I was about 15 years old, the second time when I was about 29 years old, and most recently about 3 or 4 years ago in my late 40s, when I hit bottom, and like I said, I'm not laughing at the suicide part, I'm laughing at the fact that the fitted sheet did me in. But sibling might remember this. I walked in the house and I told her, I said, I'm taking back my promise, I'm done, no more, I'm out, I cannot do this anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, I have nothing left to give. Absolutely nothing. Now, at the time, I really was in the height of my healing journey, but I hadn't done the shadow work yet. The shadow work actually would come a little bit later. And I will be honest with you, despite all the therapy I've had over the last 6 years, or 7, 8 years, whatever. I had one really long, really good therapeutic 6 months of intensive therapy in 2017, and then 2023 to 2024, so about a year and a half more of therapy. And because I felt kind of stuck when I turned 50, but still kind of do, but I'm moving through it. I'm not shaming myself and all those other things, and I'm moving through all that. But yeah, I just told her, and what I was talking about was when my friend passed away, there was a lot going on behind, this. I think a lot of it was more medical than it was depression. She had a terrible concussion. And we all know from, what is it called, CTE, from the one doctor who was studying just sports and concussions. And we know of all of the suicides that have happened in sports. Here in San Diego, we lost one of our homegrowns, Junior Seau, to suicide. And he was kind enough to donate his brain, and they were able to study it, and they started seeing patterns and all this. Well, she had a terrible, terrible concussion after a car accident. one of the reasons they don't want you to fly right away is because it can put pressure on your brain, and it cannot, like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm just speculating here, but this was a person who did have a background of this in her family. And I don't know if it maybe just triggered something in her. It's not really for me to speak to because I don't know. But when she passed away, I realized I had to do something. I had to really kind of buckle down and get myself. Yeah, see, brain trauma can completely change you. I've had 3 major concussions in my life, and I can tell you that if I didn't have depression, I probably am not sure how I would have dealt with it. But because I do have depression, I was a little more aware of how it can affect you. So I do try to take precautions on certain things, or as a bummer, there are certain rides I can no longer ride anymore. I cannot ride the Matterhorn anymore at Disneyland because that thing is like, you need a chiropractor by the end of that ride. But I love that ride, and I'm really, really bummed about it because I do love that ride. And, but it jiggles the shit out of my head. And I've noticed a few times after riding it that it's like I'd be dizzy, or I'm just kind of like, trying to focus, and then it would take a couple days to just, kind of get back into my actual head. So, but I made a promise to myself that I would not ever do that. I would not take my own life. And then I realized that wasn't good enough, because I am very good at keeping promises, but I am very bad at keeping promises to myself. So I called baby sibling, and then I talked to older sibling, and I promised them both towards the end of 2017 that I would never, ever do this. Now, that doesn't mean I don't get low enough, but that's kind of context of when I walked into the house just out of my mind, just completely wrecked and just totally dramatic. What's the saying? I'll get over it, but I have to be dramatic about it first. But this was trauma drama. And it was just, everything had just built too much, losing my mom, losing Sissy, losing my friend. And then, I think it happened after I lost my job, after my job was eliminated. I think that's when I just totally had my meltdown about 6 or 7 months later. And I was done. I was so done. I just couldn't anymore. And like I said, the fitted sheet was what won. Thank goodness for the fitted sheet in this case. I hate those damn things. But at the same time, I had a good cry. I had a good soul cry. I just, I prayed, I gratitude. I reached out to everything at the spiritual table. I called out to my mom. Just anything I could think of. And then, an older sibling came up a couple times to check on me. I told her to go away, but, she did not quit. Like every half hour, and it's not easy for her to climb the stairs when she's in a flare-up, and I know she was in a flare-up. So, these are the things we're talking about. If you know Laura, you know that she is jovial. Even when she's having a flare-up, she tries to keep a smile on her face. She would be the person that, with nothing left, she would give you the shirt off her back. And I'm sure I can speak to that for everybody watching right now. But what my point is that when I first told my parents, because I tried to make them understand depression, and they're all, well, no, blah, blah, blah. Depressed people are like this. And I'm like, did you know that older sibling tried to kill herself twice? I thought it was twice, but it turns out it's 3 times. Sorry. And they're like, no, not Laura. Not Laura. My parents didn't believe it. Because they're like, why? But that's always the question. Why? There's always a million reasons why. For some people who have really, really deep mental illness. I hate the word illness because, who have really terrible mental health. Who have the A to Z of letters of what they have. Sometimes it's just, they can't with the voices in their head anymore. They can't with the negative thoughts anymore. The people that I see on social media that are reaching out and pushing people away, and people saying, well, fine, I'll leave you alone, and this, that, and the other. And I really try not to be that person. I try to say, don't listen to the voices in your head. Don't listen to the negative voices. They're lying. They're lying to you. Because these people have never had anyone they can truly, truly trust in their life. You have to discern who is really, truly seeking that support and who is just weaponizing it. And it's very rare to find people weaponizing it. I will say this, there are a lot of amazing people on social media. A couple years ago, this person had put on there, I'm done, I'm ending it, blah, blah, blah. So apparently someone had gone through their list of people, found someone with a blue check mark that they followed, said, hey, this person really needs an uplifting message. And I'll tell you what, that person with the blue check mark, I wish I could remember who it was, because kudos to them. They saved this person's life. The next day, the person said, I'm really sorry. I'm really embarrassed, but, I'm okay. Someone that they also follow, a family member or a friend or something like that, saw and went to their house and made sure they were okay and sat with them. They held space for them. Sometimes words don't need to be said. Okay. So instead of considering it tragedy and considering it attention seeking, ask them what they need. Now, I know in the state of California, I don't know about anywhere else, you can 5150 somebody, which means basically you can put them under a 72-hour psych evaluation. Now, 5150 means that, I'm pretty sure that means they can't say no, but they have to go. But that's always the last straw, right? I was comforted to know that when my friend passed away, she jumped off of a parking structure. So, but apparently enough people had called, the police had arrived. And from what I understand from a friend that shared the police report with me, I didn't read it. They just shared it with me that she did not die alone. She died in the officer's arms. And other people would say, well, great, now that officer has to live with that. No, you know what? That was a moment of compassion. And I don't know who that officer is, but bless them, because you know what, she did not die alone. And I'm sure that it might stick with them a little bit, because we always think maybe there's something I could do. That's what went around the office. Well, I wish she would have told me, because I could have helped her. They have to seek the help, and sometimes they don't know how. We have been trained, so many of us generations have been trained to ignore mental health, to sweep it under the rug, to say, oh, that's for weak people. Oh, there's a better outcome out there if they just hang on. It's always easy to say what's easy for someone unless you're in their head. I never thought in my life I would be a person that would share the fact that I held a knife to my wrist. Of course, I probably wouldn't have died, because it turns out that is not the right way to do it. That's a very slow way to do it. And I'm not going to go any farther than that, because I don't want to give anyone any ideas. But anyways, but like I said, I got lucky. Divine intervention stepped in. You know what? I'm just going to share the story for those who haven't heard it. When I was 15 years old, so I went to private school my entire life. Well, not my entire life. From kindergarten to 8th grade, I went to Catholic school. So, and that's where my friends were. That's where my identity was. By the time I graduated from 8th grade, I was, fairly popular amongst the younger people. Everybody loved me. Everybody looked at me like their big sister, and I felt like somebody. And having gone through trauma and having never shared it at that point, it felt good to be needed. It felt good to be seen, because I felt like people were seeing me for who I wanted to be, not who I felt like inside. And then I had to start high school, and none of my friends were at this high school. And then that's where Bestie comes in. Bestie was relentless in his pursuit of friendship, and I'm grateful. And I wasn't very kind at the beginning. I wasn't very nice. I was very kind of standoffish, and it wasn't because I was being a snob. It was because I was nervous. And again, I didn't realize it until probably right now thinking about it. I had serious trust issues. So, and it was a guy, so, but but he was relentless. By halfway through the year, I had people I was eating with, I had people I was having lunch with and hanging out with and doing things with, and bestie was becoming more bestie in my life. And then that summer, my parents decided to move. And there was a lot of reasons. There was a lot of reasons behind it, but they decided to move. And they didn't move anywhere in our district. They moved to a completely different school district. And so I had to start over again. And I was lost. By October or so, I hit bottom. I hit bottom, and I was in tears, and I was crying, and I thought, you know what? I just can't do this anymore. And then I had the knife to my wrist, and the answering machine, for all of you old enough to remember the answering machines, the answering machine never picked up. And it was not broken, because after that phone call with Bestie, the answering machine picked up when my mom called, because she's like, who were you on the phone with for so long? You know, because back then my parents would not get call waiting. Okay, if you could not get through, you just called later. But I'm grateful, because he saved my life that day. You know, and I don't know that I would have done it. I'm not sure that I would have had the strength, but in that moment in time, I was so out of my mind, and I literally had a scratch from starting that I don't want to know. I don't want to know. The second time, I threw a bunch of pills, siblings pills, sorry sibling, into a glass of soda, and I was going to inhale it, and I did try to reach out for help. Nobody was answering their phones. Everybody was going straight to voicemail. And this is the early days, right, of cell phones and stuff. And then I smelled cotton candy. More divine intervention. There's only one person in this world that I know who has passed on that loves cotton candy enough that coming through with that scent would definitely make me know who it was, and that was sibling's mom, Barbara. And you don't have to believe it. That's your choice. I was there. I know what happened. I know there was no breezes in that house. It was an apartment. All the windows were closed. All the blinds were drawn. The air conditioning was not on. And there was just this breeze coming from the hallway where sibling's mom's room was. And I was sitting in her chair too. And I felt it. It kind of blew my hair a little bit. And it was kind of like, do you really, it almost felt like, This woman came out once and said, you know what? I thought sibling was in trouble, but it was me. So, she mommed me, and I love that she mommed me, but she mommed me from the other side as well. And I threw away the stuff, and right after I threw it away, I got all the phone calls. Everybody called back, including older sibling who was rushing home because she was terrified. She was absolutely terrified that something, and she didn't scold me at first. She did later. She's like, don't you ever do that again, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I tried to call everybody, but nobody was answering. And I just took it as a sign, right? And maybe somebody was trying to off me then. Someone on the other side that doesn't like me. I don't know. I'm joking there. But yeah, so that was my second near attempt. But, and I had people. That's the hard part. I had anybody I could turn to. I had people I could turn to. I had people that I could trust. But I didn't. And trust has been the hardest part of this healing journey. Trust has been the hardest thing for me to learn on this healing journey because it is scary, because you are giving of yourself. You're leaving yourself vulnerable. And, when you've gone through different things, no matter what kind of trauma you've ever been through, it's hard to trust people. It's hard to know who you can trust. I've had my trust broken a lot of times. Not a fun thing. So, there's that too. So, I know I took a while on that one, but let's go back through this. Everyone is present versus everyone tries to avoid them. Everyone feels bad and wishes they saw the signs. Gotta love that one. Versus everyone feels irritated, everyone pretends the problem isn't there and dismisses them. That was my mom. Everyone wishes they hadn't done it. No one believes they'll ever do it. So my mom, as terrible as it is, and I've shared this before, and it's no reflection on my mom. My mom had her own views on things. My mom had, whatever else going on in her head. And she did have a family member that took their own life, and I think she was afraid that that was going to happen to me. And as an only child, I can see why she would just be like, no, you have to be stronger. That's for weak people. And I agree. I do not like that. Sammy says, I hate that term. I hate that weak term. It's not weakness. I actually lost a good friend over that word. He was calling addiction a weakness, and I took extreme exception. I don't blame you. Addiction is not a weakness. Addiction is a coping mechanism. And if you don't think so, think about this, okay? When people think about addiction, they think alcohol, they think drugs. Addiction is food, sugar, caffeine. If coffee is your coping mechanism, but you have to have the caffeine, it is probably an addiction. And if you don't think caffeine is addictive, every year for Lent in high school, I used to give up soda because I just drank it like it was water. And I would always go through withdrawals. Always. Headaches, sweats, chills, the shakes, 2 or 3 days worth of that shit. I can't even imagine what it must have been like for somebody who was on drugs or alcohol to have to walk away from that. Plus, when you go to parties, alcohol is always there. Not always drugs, but alcohol is always around, right? You go to concerts, there's people smoking pot, there's people doing this, and there's people going, please, no, don't, just keep that away from me because I can't go down that road. Addiction is a very fine line that people walk. And a lot of times I think a lot of them have trouble, coming off of the addiction because it can be so painful. I mean, I've been on the lower end just from sugar and caffeine. I can't imagine what it's like trying to get off of alcohol or heroin or, hard liquor and all that. But, kudos to those people. I have a person on Facebook that I know that just celebrated 23 years of not drinking. And I mean, I have a drink occasionally. I mean, look, I have Guinness. I know I saved this because it was so cute. It's just this special thing, but anyways. So, but that's my treat for me. But for other people, it's a coping mechanism. So I understand where you're coming from, Sammy, 100%. And I don't like the term weak either. When my dad and I were watching, Criminal Minds the other day. That's my new binge. Okay, I'm just finishing up Bones now. Now I'm on to Criminal Minds. I know, I've never seen these shows. And this girl was just, she was suicidal. And there was a serial killer out there, and she wanted him to take her own life because she said it herself, I'm not brave enough to do it. So I can't do it. And then he got mad at her for, thinking that. So she kills him, and then she kills herself. And it was kind of like, my dad's all, I just don't get it. Why are people like that? Now, this is no reflection on my dad. My dad tries to understand, okay? I will say that I've had better talks with my dad than my mom would ever have with me because my mom, I think, was scared. And that's not to say my dad's not, but my dad tries to understand. And one time I told him, I said, look, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And I really wouldn't. I would not wish this on anybody because depression can go in so many different ways. It can be very, very abusive. Or it could be very, very, timid, or it could be very, very quiet. There are so many levels of, how when people just lose their ever-loving mind. Mental illness. Look at all the people that do all these shootings, right? And it's sad because somehow these people got access to these guns. And that's a whole different egg that we're going to talk about one day. Good Lord, have mercy. So anyways, speaking of coffee addictions, but the girl in the story said, well, that's so and so, you need to find her. And even she had mentioned, yeah, I'm one of the people that used to make fun of her. Don't make fun of these people, okay? Don't, because you're just adding fuel to the fire, and that is not helping. I get that sometimes it might seem like attention seeking, but there might be something that is trauma in their life. Maybe it's just a chemical imbalance like I have and like older sibling has. And, people will sit there and go, it's not real. Chemical imbalances aren't real. Well, here's a fun fact. Did you know that when people are going through cancer or people have had major heart surgery or trauma surgery, like body trauma surgery, a lot of them are put on a specific drug, which is known as an antidepressant. not normally used for people who have depression, but people who have that chemical imbalance. And yeah, so there you go. And that's not really a perspective thing. I asked my doctor about that, and she's all, yeah, she's all, because it changes the chemicals in your body. And that's the same that if you're a person who's done hard drugs for a long time, or alcohol, it can change the chemical balance in your body. And a lot of times I'll put them on antidepressants because they've just kind of skewed their body in such an awkward way that it's just trying to do everything it can to just stay alive and keep up. So but that was one episode, and I thought, how sad, not how sad, like, it's trivial. I mean, how sad. And the people that made fun of her, and the people that didn't understand her. Oh, she's always been so quiet. Oh, she was the goth girl. I used to wear black all the time, and I used to wear black all the time because I think part of me, it was too overwhelming to try to pick colors and put them together. So black was perfect, but turns out I actually like to wear black. I know I don't do it a lot anymore, but I do. So I'm going to share some of these. Okay. I went on to the World Health Organization, and more than 700, and so this article was from 2025, March 2025, so just this last March, but it was referencing more of the numbers around 2021, but more than 720,000 people die, excuse me, by suicide a year. For each suicide, there is an estimated 20 attempts. Okay, so you take 720,000 people times 20, and that's how many people have attempted to take their own life. Now, this is apparently worldwide, okay, 720,000 people worldwide, but that, for billions of people, that's still a lot. That's still a lot for something that we should be able to get a handle on if we could just get people to really be open and talk about mental health. All right, the third leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds, 73% of suicides occur in low to middle income countries, and reasons are multifaceted, influenced by social, cultural, biological, psychological, and environmental factors present across the life force. A sibling has CRPS, which is chronic regional pain syndrome, used to be known as RSD, which is reflex sympathetic dystrophy, but there's so many RSD things out there that I think that's why they made it a little bit more, CRPS, give it its own name. And that is actually known as the suicide illness, because so many people with chronic regional pain syndrome, which is basically fibromyalgia on steroids, cannot handle the pain and will take their own life just to not feel the pain anymore, because there is no cure for it. There are ways to put it into remission, kind of like cancer, but there's not enough people studying it right now. And to be honest with you, every time I've gone with sibling to the doctor and someone says, oh yeah, I know what CRPS, RSD. I mean, even when they say, yeah, it used to be RSD, it's like, whoa, it blows our minds that somebody knows. Two of my cousins who are nurses know what it is. And I was just so grateful that they did. And they're all like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, and one of them was even surprised at Laura. They're like, you have that? And they're all, but you don't. And siblings had it for so long. She was diagnosed with it in 1980 after her car accident in 79. So, and then she went into remission for a while, had back surgery about 20 years ago, and it came back. And with a vengeance. But, but that's just one thing. There are biological chemical imbalances. It's still a debate whether it's an inherited trait, because not everybody gets it. Not everybody has something that triggers it. For me, I know there's depression on both sides of my family, and I can't speak to the people directly responsible for my life, but I know for me, my own trauma probably triggered that. And then of course, I had heart surgery, so maybe a chemical imbalance. I don't know. I was 3, but yeah, so there's a lot of factors there. Psychological. Sometimes people, there's a lot of psychological, right? And you watch Criminal Minds, damn. If those things happen in real life, which I'm sure some of them might actually be based on true stories, my dad will sit there and he'll be like, there are some crazy people in this world. He's all, how can all of this be true? And I said, they have entire channels dedicated to true crime. Now I admit I'm a bit of a true crime addict, but I was thinking about this in the shower yesterday, and because I'm always trying to figure out, why am I a true crime addict? But the thing is, I noticed I won't watch anything that doesn't have an end. Like, I started watching this one show and they're all, if you have any information on this, and I'm like, no, I never watched it again, which is terrible because, I want to be the person that helps somebody else find somebody, but I need to have an end to it. And I realized last night when I was showering, I thought, oh, you know what it is? I never got justice for what happened to me. I mean, I did in a way because the person ended up dying alone, but, natural causes, I guess, but it didn't feel like enough. There was never any, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but there was never any real solution to what had happened, or any real period on the sentence. And I think that's why, because I need to see people get caught for doing bad things. And that's really what it is. But I sit there and I'm like, and I just get so emotional for these families that have lost people, but I mean, I don't know. That's my thing. But also, for every suicide, there are many more attempts. A prior attempt is an important risk factor for suicide in the general population. Oh, when we were talking about reasons are multifaceted, influenced by social and cultural, biological and psychological. Social and cultural. My mom, don't talk about it. We don't talk about that, social things like, when you're raised by a certain generation, you become sometimes that certain generation. So whoever decided to start putting mental health out there and blast it, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for giving the rest of us the courage to say something or to take care of ourselves. Now, you don't have to be like me and come on here and tell people, about your whole life story. When I say brave, I mean people become brave enough that it's like, you know what? I don't care what everybody else says. I know I need this for myself. I know I need help. And, people have done this great thing by making online therapy. Even my doctor, because I go through basically an HMO. And, but I found out that if I was like, if I wasn't feeling well, or if I was sick, but I didn't want to miss therapy, I could have done it online. We could have done a Zoom call. So I was very grateful to know that there are these services out there for people that don't want other people to know, because maybe they're afraid to be judged. Maybe they're afraid that, someone's going to like 5150 them. I mean, I shared that I was an advocate, and next thing I know, my position was being eliminated at work, and I'm being told to go live my best life and to do the things that make me happy. And I'm like, I'm in a good place right now. Thanks for triggering me and sending me into a spiral. And yet they thought they were doing the right thing because they didn't know how to handle it. And the more we talk about mental health, the more we put it out there, the more we are able, for those of us willing to share our stories. I'm not telling you have to step out of your comfort zone. That is your choice, because there are enough of us out there who will speak for everybody. And I will always advocate for mental health. That is the one thing that I truly, truly want to make sure that when I go out of this, when I leave this planet, when I slide into my grave feet first, that it was something that people will remember. My people. Not anybody else. My people. The people that know me. The people that know how hard I've tried and how much that I'm doing to make sure that the people around me or the people that watch this show find a way to get help. Find a way to trust other people. There are going to be times when we trust people and they break our trust, and we have to decide whether we want to walk away or not. That's called boundaries. You are allowed to set boundaries. And you're allowed to set boundaries with people without poofing them out of your life. Sibling and I, we are a balance. Because this girl, she jumps in feet first when it comes to trusting people. And I'm just like, stop it. Stop. It's like, it gives new meaning to fuck around and find out, but in a nicer way, right? Trust and find out. But you know what? In a way, I told her, I said, in a way, it has helped me to really kind of open up. But I told her, I said, you can't just trust everybody, especially people you don't know, but feel them out, but then there's me who doesn't trust squat. Okay. I mean, I'm learning to trust people, but I'm always like, Sherlock Holmesing people. So, going back to the cultural part of suicidal factors, the suicide rate amongst I don't know what the suicide rate is amongst our LGBTQ community. And I probably should have looked at that, especially since it's Pride Month. But you got to factor in that 720,000 of those people are probably veterans. They're probably LGBTQ. A lot of it is cultural. We were watching another Criminal Minds, and this one guy, some guy was out there killing all these women, and at first they thought it was this one guy because they're all, well, he has a secret. Why was this guy watching him? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out he was gay. But his mother would talk to him, his sister would talk to him, but the father had pretty much disowned him. And because, he's the boy, right? And the boy is supposed to carry on the name. And there's so much pressure we put on in one of the stories I wrote called The Eight. Sammy read it. Thank you, Sammy, for reading it. Sammy read it. I did try to throw in there that there was a cultural issue, and I didn't really name the culture, but we know that there are cultures out there that if you are gay, you are probably going to be the hell shunned out of you. We can't do that. I'm not a person who ever had the opportunity to be a parent. Well, okay, I never became a parent. And, but I can't imagine having a child and not loving them. Although I did tell somebody once when we were watching something, they're all, yeah, if my kid killed somebody, damn right I'd turn them in. Damn right I'd turn them in. Because they need help, and they hurt other people. But removing that, okay, because that is probably a very rare occurrence. But being gay is not a rare occurrence. Being part of the LGBTQ community is not a rare occurrence. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of people who are afraid to open up because they're afraid to tell their families, because they're afraid that the whole dynamic will change and that, they're going to be shunned, right? Take My Big Fat Greek Wedding Part 2, all right? Spoiler alert. One of the characters ends up gay, is afraid to tell his parents, and then they're like, oh, we know, and then they welcome the guy right in. And this is probably a culture where he was afraid because, we have a lot of culture in this world. And it's not just outside culture. It's anybody across the board. If your child is gay, love them unconditionally. That is your child. You gave birth to them. You did nothing wrong. It just happened. Okay? They are born that way. And it's okay. I remember when Bestie said he came out to his aunt. And she's like, oh, I know. She's like, I knew before you knew. Sibling has people. I knew before he knew. It's just, I didn't know, but I didn't know a lot of gay people at the time. And like I said, the way he came out to me was like, huh? And then he thought I was mad. I had a family member text me and say, please don't be angry with me, but I have something to tell you. And they came out to me and I was like, kid, it's okay. Honest. Why would I be mad? My best friend is gay. Okay? I'm a proud ally. I'm a proud ally of this community. Spitting at people is the ultimate disrespect and it grosses the shit out of me out. But I would step in front of someone if someone tried to spit on them. That is not going to happen. You're going to spit at someone, you're going to spit at a straight girl. Okay? And don't think I won't give it back, because I will. Because I may not be able to defend myself very well, but I will defend my people, and I will defend people who are afraid. Because we need to protect those people. We need to keep them safe. We need to let them feel like they are a part of this world. Why did the Pride community have so many flags? Because they need to feel accepted by someone. They need to feel accepted within their own groups. They need to feel seen. And we don't make them feel seen. Well, not enough of us make them feel seen. And we need to. They need to know that they have allies out there. They need to know that they have people out there that will have their back. We all have people that will have our backs. Sammy is 2,000 miles away. I know she has my back. My cousin Jeannie's a mile away. Not even that, probably. As the crow flies, she's about, I could spit towards her, the wind would probably carry it. Not that I'd spit at you guys. And older sibling. When I'm at home, she's literally like 6 feet away from me on the couch. But I know they all have my back. When my dad is healthy, I know he has my back. So, you know, my family, my whole family does. Baby sibling, 600 miles away. My cousin's up the freeway. You know, I don't see them very often, but I know if I needed them, they're there. And, you know, we're all there for our family members who don't feel seen. We have to be. So, I know this was a bit all over the board. I apologize. It's a very delicate subject. It's a very hard one, really, to talk about. It's gotten easier for me over the years because I've become more open about my story and less ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of my story anymore. I'm not, oh yeah, cuz I totally have your back. Totally. I will ignore people on behalf of her. So, but I do. I love my family and I love my friends and all the people I don't know out there. I love you too, and I will have your back. I am a safe space. Okay, if you ever see me out there and you do not feel safe around somebody, or you feel like you're being marginalized, or you feel like someone might be trying to attack you, just come to me. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, we will. And you know, just as a quick thing, if you see someone in distress, maybe someone's yelling at them or something, there is a way. Very briefly, you just move in. Tell them very gently, hi, my name is so-and-so, pretend like you know me, and let's have a conversation. And then just say, hey, how are you doing? Or you could just say, hey, how are you doing? Just pretend that you know me. We're going to walk away. And if that person follows you, you can call 911. Now, just really quick, I want to share these before I let you go. If you need mental health help in Canada and the US, you can dial. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Apparently my hand gestures set off something. But you can dial 988 in Canada or the US, or you can go to 988lifeline.org. Mexico, you can find a helpline.com. The UK, nhs.uk, or dial 111. And yeah, I don't have all of them. You can Google across the board wherever you live what your emergency numbers are. I will try to look them up and try to post them somewhere. I mean, I'll try, okay? My brain is still in recovery mode. So, you know, I'm starting to feel like myself again. I know I said that last week, but I'm really starting to feel like myself again. So, but I'm still a little forgetful. So if I forget, I apologize. But again, those are the numbers. Okay, I'll put the ones that I have in the comments and you can look them up. So again, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public. We'll have a little bit better, you know, subject matter tomorrow, or a little more lightweight subject matter tomorrow. All right. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Sammy, Jeannie, sibling, thank you. Justice, right. Sammy, justice is the word I was looking for earlier. I didn't get justice. So there you go. Have a great day, everybody. And thank you again for watching.